Season 1 of Only Murders in the Building introduces us to Charles, Oliver, and Mabel, three residents of the affluent Manhattan apartment building, the Arconia. Charles is a semi-retired actor who starred in a popular detective series in the 90s called Brazos. Oliver is a struggling Broadway director who can barely keep up with his rent. And Mabel is renovating an apartment for her wealthy aunt. The three residents are mostly strangers, but they do share one thing in common. They're all super fans of a popular true crime podcast called All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma, hosted by Cinda. When fellow Arconia resident Tim Kono is found dead, police detective Williams rules it a suicide, but Charles, Oliver, and Mabel believe it to be murder. They all witnessed Tim making a frantic phone call before his death, and when sneaking into his apartment to look for clues, they find seemingly innocuous items such as sex toys, as well as a more mysterious cache of jewelry. And so the three team up to investigate Tim's death and start their own true crime podcast called Only Murders in the Building. When Oliver goes to his old associate Teddy Dimas to beg for money to help pay his rent, Teddy agrees to sponsor the podcast. As the trio investigate, they discover that many residents of the Arconia were happy Tim died, as he was asthmatic and his death meant that residents were now allowed to use their fireplaces. One of the trio's first suspects is music superstar Sting, a fellow resident of the Arconia. Tim was Sting's stockbroker and lost him a large sum of money. Sting confesses that in anger he fired Tim and told him to kill himself. The trio clears Sting's name and comfort him that Tim didn't kill himself and was actually murdered. Oliver's adult son Will recognizes Mabel as having been close friends with Tim, a detail Mabel had kept a secret. It turns out Mabel and Tim and their other friends Zoe and Oscar had all been fans of the Hardy Boys book series and solved pretend mysteries together. Years ago, the four friends attended a rooftop party where Zoe was later found dead. Since Oscar had gotten into a heated argument with Zoe before her death, he was arrested for her murder. When Tim confided in Mabel that he saw someone else arguing with Zoe before her death, Mabel ends their friendship as Tim refuses to disclose this information to the police to exonerate Oscar. In the present, Oscar has been released from prison, making him the biggest suspect in Tim's murder. While Charles, Oliver, and Mabel believe Oscar had a motive to kill Tim, he professes his innocence and joins their investigation, eventually entering into a romance with Mabel. Also joining the investigation, despite Mabel and Oliver's objections, is Charles's new girlfriend and fellow Arconia resident, the professional bassoonist Jayne. As the trio's investigation continues, their podcast becomes massively popular, even getting mentioned by their idol Cinda on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Due to this popularity, Teddy's business sees a massive boost, and he pays Charles and Oliver an additional $50,000. And that's when Charles and Oliver notice Teddy's check is paid from an account named Angel, the same account that Tim's jewelry came from. While investigating Teddy, the trio discovers that Teddy and his son Theo had been stealing jewelry off of bodies at a funeral home. It's then revealed that Theo had had a crush on Zoe, but when she discovered the Dimas family secret, he confronted her at the rooftop party and accidentally pushed her off, killing her. Tim was the only witness to this crime, but was threatened by Teddy to keep quiet. While Charles is out on a date with Jan, Teddy kidnaps Mabel and Oliver, threatening them to stop their investigation, absolve the Dimas family, and end their podcast immediately. Instead, the trio use their final episode of the podcast to detail all of the Dimas family crimes and label them as Tim's murderers. Detective Williams begins looking into the case once again and realizes that Tim's death was caused by poison and that it couldn't have been the Dimas family, as security footage proved that they weren't in the Arconia the night of Tim's death. The trio retract their accusations of the Dimas family on their podcast. The unwanted attention the podcast has brought to the Arconia leads to the other residents voting to evict the trio. Charles becomes disillusioned with the case and quits the investigation. Mabel and Oliver aren't ready to give up and learn that Tim had a secret girlfriend prior to his death. They then realize that what they had originally thought were Tim's sex toys were actually bassoon cleaners. It turns out Jan was the murderer, killing Tim after they broke up. Mabel and Oliver break into Jan's apartment and discover that she has a whole box labeled Jan's Little Toxins, which she was going to use to gas the entire Arconia via the newly reopened fireplaces. The trio race to the Arconia's basement to stop Jan and save the Arconia. Mabel knocks Jan out and she is arrested for murder. Having solved Tim's murder and saved the Arconia, the trio celebrate their victory. As Mabel leaves to get champagne, Charles and Oliver receive a mysterious text message warning them to leave the building immediately. As they go to warn Mabel, Charles and Oliver find her covered in blood, hunched over the dead body of Bunny, the Arconia's board president who had tried to get the trio evicted. Charles, Oliver, and Mabel are then escorted out of the Arconia in handcuffs, the prime suspects in Bunny's murder. And now the trio found themselves as the main subjects of Cinda Canning's newest podcast, Only Murderers in the Building. And that's everything that happened in the first season of Only Murders in the Building. Let me know some of your favorite moments from the first season in the comments below, and what are you most looking forward to seeing in season 2? Like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe to this channel for more content like it, and that does it for me in this video, but I'll see you in the next one.